Alright, g'day guys. This is the grinder that I hired to remove the residual tile adhesive left from removing tiles on through the house. Doesn't do a bad job. Some things to think about before you run out and buy it, to hire it to do it, is that it makes a lot of mess. I hired the vacuum that comes with it. It plugs into the back here, but you still get a lot of dusts, and I mean a lot of dust. And if you're doing this on your own, you probably want to get the help of a friend, because you really need to sweep away the debris that it grinds, so you can see if you need to do another pass, because I had to do several passes over, because it only takes off a minute amount at a time. Now, I initially wanted it to take off the tile adhesive, but you need a certain type of blade for tile adhesive, and these are the blades. Well, I suppose the grinding blade this is for the adhesive, and this round circle here is a diamond blade. But what actually does majority of the work are these two teeth, I suppose you'd call them, and they're not actually made of diamonds. They're just like you can see there's a hardened part, and then there's some like steel behind it. And what these do is, because the adhesive isn't hard and brittle, it's fairly soft and elastic. These actually cut into the adhesive and are what remove the adhesive, and then this follows behind it to sort of grind it off a bit. Because if you just grind the adhesive, it just heats up and becomes sort of sticky. So you actually need something that'll dig into it and remove it, and that's what that does. I'll show you how to fit these blades, because I had to, after a bit of a debacle with just these, and I actually wore down a set of these, because when these hit the actual slab, you wear them away really quickly, because they're not meant for removing concrete, they're only meant for removing the adhesive. And I didn't know that, and so I must have gone down too far, and then it actually stopped removing adhesive altogether. So I went back to Coates and explained what had happened, and they said, I'll come down and grab a new set of adhesive blades, and they also supplied me with concrete grinding blades. So they said, go over it with this, remove the majority of your adhesive, try not to go down all the way to the slab, leave some adhesive there, and then we swap over to the concrete grinding diamonds, and that completely removes what's left of the adhesive. The reason why you don't just start with the concrete grinding adhesive is because they tend to clog up when there's a lot of adhesive. So if you remove most of it with this, then the concrete ones, which are on there at the moment, I'll show you, you then swap over to those ones, and that will remove the rest of your adhesive. I'll show you a shot of what we did. I'll show you a bit of grinding. You don't see a lot while we're grinding, because it leaves such a mess behind it and there's a lot of dust everywhere, but I'll show you us grinding it, and then I'll show you a walkthrough of what it looks like after it was done. Alright, I'll show you how to fit and remove these. They're actually a very good design. They're a tapered fit, as you can see, and they slot in there, and just with the tap they're fit into place, and centrifugal force, the way it's designed, will only make them go tighter in their slot, so they won't come loose. Let's have a look. This is from Coates. I'm not sure about other high joints, but I'd say it's a pretty generic type machine. very simple operation. Plug it in, tilt it back, switch it on, and then wait till it winds up, because it takes a couple of seconds to wind up to full speed. And then you go down, and it's got like a spring-loaded, self-leveling pad on the bottom, and there's a shroud that slides up and down to try and reduce the dust. It doesn't work very well, but it does help. And yeah, it's sort of self-leveling, and you just got to keep it moving as you're grinding. Try not to sit in one spot, or you will dig a hole. But to get to your blades, there's this little offset hinge here. So you remove that, and then the front handle moves forward, and then you can basically push backward on the so yeah, just push your little shroud back, rotate the blade, give it a tap, and out it comes. We've got one more. And then down they go. And this is what the concrete grinding ones look like. As you can see, it's a totally different design. And there you've got diamond blades going that way and that way. Now to install them, it's quite easy as well. I won't put them all in because it's basically the opposite. You match the tapering angle, slide it up till it stops, and then just give it a tap from the other side. And that's it. And when that spins, the centrifugal force will only try and drive that harder into the wedge, and so they're not coming off. So I'll just remove that. There we go, and that's out. And so that's pretty much it for the machine. If you hire this, like I said, be expecting a mess. You can use a hose to supply water to it. I didn't use that. If you were doing outside, that's probably the way to go. Keeps the dust down and will probably keep the blades cooler. But you're gonna make a slurry, like, because grinding, it creates a lot of dust, and you create a lot of concrete, and you mix that with water, and you basically get creating a mortar mix. So be prepared to have a slurry to clean up. Now, if you wanted to do that inside your house, you could do that, but be prepared, you're going to have a mess. At least with the dry stuff, the vacuum cleaner does suck up a lot of it, but you're going to have a lot of sweeping to do as well. There's no way getting away from that. The vacuum does not suck up all of it. Be lucky if the vacuum sucks up 40% of what that actually grinds off. Yeah, so be prepared to either move furniture out of your house, or TVs and electrical equipment out of your house, or cover them up, because they're going to get covered in dust. There's no getting away from it. Yeah, it makes a mess, even with the vacuum cleaner. The vacuum cleaner we got was, it's already in the ute. It's quite a large unit, and it does get a bit cumbersome trying to pull it all behind you. It's got a decent lead on it, so I didn't need an extension lead for the actual vacuum. This did. Again, because it's drawing a fair bit of power, a little thin white extension lead that for domestic use, not going to cut it. You need some sort of heavy duty extension lead. I'm not talking, a $200 lead. You can get these from Bunnings. They're basically a DIY sort of heavy duty extension lead, but those ones you're buying from Coles and Woolworths for an iron or something like that in the house, they don't cut with this. They draw too much, and you're either going to trip out because it's not getting enough power, or you're just it's going to run really slow. So yeah, a good thick leaf that's meant for like power tools probably cost you $25 or $30 from Bunnings. You could probably hire one if you didn't have any need for it afterwards. They'd probably hire extension leads at Coates. I'm sure they would. And here's another, before I forget about it, this is hired from Coates Hire. But I actually booked it at Bunnings Warehouse. And the reason that I did that was because if you book it through Bunnings, you get the hire for a hell of a lot cheaper than actually going through Coates themselves. I couldn't understand this, but that's the way it works. And if you have Power Pass, you'll get an even bigger discount off it. So to hire this, the vacuum cleaner and the vacuum cleaner together through Coates was around $450. Going through Bunnings, it cost me $240, I think it was. Yeah, $240. So there you go. And no explanation why it's that much cheaper through Bunnings, but it was a hell of a lot cheaper, which is why one of the reasons I went to Coates. I have few other hire joints nearby closer to me, but none of them came anywhere near the price that I got from hiring it through Bunnings. So there you go. If you're going to hire a machine like this, even the tile machine, basically if you look up anything through the hire shop at Bunnings, they still hire things out, but a lot of things that are probably bigger that they've got on their Bunnings website will actually, you're hiring it from Coates, not from Bunnings. And it's a much better price. All right, so just get back to the vacuum cleaner. It was actually a fairly new vacuum cleaner. It was actually had an internal filter, heavy industrial type, but it struggled even for this. It even had an automatic knocker to knock the filter bags to clear the dust so the air would flow better. But even that, it clogged up, and it was a fairly new one too. It looked brand new, to tell you the truth. And it sort of worked pretty good at the start, but once I got down to got the adhesive out of the way, and I was actually grinding the concrete, it didn't really do a lot. Didn't do a lot at all. Just, I think, too much dust for it. So if you want really good dust extraction, I wouldn't just go with a standard vac. I'd look for something a lot bigger, like 44-gallon drum type size, because this was the size of probably this trolley. Actually, look, I'll show you it. It's in the back of you. What brand it is, because there's no brand on it. There's like the model number, but what brand it is I couldn't tell you. But it's pretty high tech. It's got a digital display on the front of it there, with a few buttons, and it's got different speeds you can run it at, and it's got an automatic knock function, which sounds like somebody's whacking it from the inside with something. Extendable handle at the back, so you can hinge it. The wheels lock on the front, so it won't roll everywhere when you don't want it to. Pretty. And it had a lot of suction, and it's got a bag inside, and then it has another plastic lining that goes in first, so whatever gets out of the bag or gets shaken out of the filter falls down on top of the bag. But it makes for easy cleanup. So when you remove the bag that's actually connected to catch the dust of what you're sucking up, there's another bag left in there after you remove that, which is like a large plastic bag, and that catches all the residual dust that the bag doesn't, from because the filters, when they get knocked by the machine itself to loosen up the dust in them to help airflow better, that is not connected to the actual bag that collects from the suction of the tube, the hose. So that other plastic bag catches all that stuff, so it's not just left in the bottom of the vacuum cleaner. It's, you just pull that bag out with the other bag all together, and that's it. There's nothing else left in there. So it's not a bad setup. But those bags, you get one free plastic liner, I suppose you call it, and one free collection bag. I filled up my first one, that free. I actually was warned about this beforehand, so I opted to take another two. They're about $25 each for the liner and the actual bag that collects the rubbish. And I went through, well, I didn't quite fill up the second one, and I've probably done almost half the house, and that's almost half of, say, 22 squares of living, which, you know, there's some carpet areas in there too. So I did roughly probably a 4x4 meter area, and I probably did a 1 meter by 8 meter area, and I went through a bag and a half, if not maybe 3/4. But yeah, and do be prepared to give the vacuum a bit of a clean up. The bottom section, which was just all plastic, no electrics in the bottom section, I gave that a good hose out, and then I blew it out with compressed air. That cleaned up okay. The top section, I just wiped it down with a damp sponge, not too wet, just to clean up, because it was covered in dust and that. And you know, if you don't bring these things, you know, back half decent, they will charge you for cleaning them. So keep that in mind. All right, so like I said, $240 to hire this and the vacuum cleaner for 24 hours. So I hired it at 8 o'clock this morning, and I'm going to take it back 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. I would have taken it back tonight, but I had a bit of a debacle with the first set of blades, like I mentioned earlier. So I had to, I lost about 2.5 hours between contacting Coates and then driving down there and back with the new blades. But that said, if I hadn't had that, I would have been finished by about 2 o'clock. And that's with cleaning up the inside of the house as well. Because after all this was done, we had to sweep the whole inside of the house, and my wife mopped the tiles, and I swept, and we vacuumed all the leftover debris, and that's when we were finished. So yeah, I could have had this back before they closed, because they close at 5. Does a decent job. You get a rough finish with this, but you're not meant to take off all adhesive with the adhesive blades, but you get a pretty smooth finish with the concrete blades. And like I said, the machine does most of the work. It can get close to edges, but if you've got a wall there, you sort of drive yourself into into the wall, and then you can't go any further, because the wheels are a tad wider than the cutting blade, so you'll only get to about that far in from the wall. There's about that much left over from the wall, and like I said, because the walls are, the blade is a little bit smaller than the width of the wheels. When the wheels, you get too close, you jam the wheels up against your skirting board, and your handles will be almost hitting the plaster. So if you keep going forward, you're going to be dragging the handle along your plasterboard, and your wheels are going to be scuffing up your skirting board. So yeah, you're better off just sort of coming back out, tilt it back so it's not grinding, come backwards, and then sort of come out from a bigger angle again and go back in. You'll know what I mean when you start using it. And you just keep it moving while it's running. Turn it on, tilt it back so that you don't, because it won't be able to have the torque to start up while it's grinding. So tilt it back, start it up, it'll wind up. Once it's at full speed, then lower it down gently and then just keep moving straight away. Try not to let it sit in one spot for too long. Well, actually, you don't want it to sit still at all. You always want to keep it moving. If you find you have to stop because of something, tilt it back and switch it off, or tilt it back, maneuver it where you need to go, and then start again. Do not sort of let it sit there while you figure out what you're going to do, because you will dig a hole. It's that simple. Keep it moving or you'll dig a hole. That's it. And if you're using the adhesive blades, it's fine while it's on adhesive. If for some reason it starts sort of jumping about and acting a little different, not running nice and smooth, sort of, it's because you're digging into the slab. If it starts jumping and sort of vibrating a bit, yeah, lift it up and move it over, or have a look underneath it to see that there's actually adhesive there, that it hasn't chipped off a large chunk. Because when it starts jumping about, it's because it's grinding the slab, not adhesive. And the blades don't like grinding the slab. They're not designed for that. They're designed for adhesive. So yeah, don't try and take too much of the adhesive off unless yours is really thick. Mine was only about probably 2 mil, 2.5, 3 mil tops thickness. And it sort of varied a fair bit because a lot of it got ripped up with the tiles, stuck to the tiles. So there wasn't a lot left on the floor, but it was quite grippy on the underfoot. So there was probably about 2.5 mil, maybe 3 in some areas. But yeah, this actually did quite well. It was a black tile adhesive that I had. Because like I said, the house is about 24 years old, so that's what they used back then to adhere tiles. Now they sort of tend to use grout, and that comes up a lot easier. You wouldn't need the adhesive stuff blades for, like, if your tiles were grouted in. But yeah, mine were glued, and yeah, this got it off quite easily. But yeah, you leave a thin layer of the adhesive, and then come in with the grinding stones, and that cleans it right off. You know, that cleans it right off. And I'll show you a look inside of the job, and I'll put a couple of minutes of when we were actually grinding it after this now. Okay, so like I said, if you're going to hire this, go through Bunnings. Hell of a lot cheaper. If you've got a Power Pass card, even cheaper. But yeah, just be prepared for a lot of dust, and yeah, just keep it moving. Always keep it moving. If it's not moving, lift it up and switch it off, and hire the vac, because if you didn't have the vac, it's going to be probably twice as worse with the dust. But wear some PPE, glasses, and you'll need a dust mask. Yeah, and what we did as well, which tend to help, is we've got evaporative air conditioning. I turned that on and opened the doors, and that helped to blow the dust out of the house, and sort of made it bearable while we were working in there. Yeah, just something else that you can do to try and keep that dust down and out of your lungs. So yeah, dust mask is probably a great idea if you're going to do this job. But yeah, like I said, it is messy, and there's going to be a lot of dust. So if you're not prepared for that, then you're probably better off paying somebody else to do it. But you're still going to have dust in the house, so you make sure they cover everything up, or get what you don't want covered in dust out of the house, because it's going to send it everywhere. All right, guys, I hope that's helped you out. There isn't much on this sort of thing that when I tried looking for it. I see some large industrial type machines, really big ones that people have used, but no one has actually gone into any details. On the Coates Hire site, there is a woman that sort of goes through the ins and outs of it, but She doesn't show you how to change the blades. She basically just shows you the basic workings of it, how to tilt it, and adjust the handle and whatnot. But yeah, there wasn't a lot, and I thought, if I can't find it, somebody else might want a bit of an insight into them. They are easy to work with. It does fit in my ute, and the coach that I went to, everything they've got their overhead crane to lift it up. You don't have to lift that into there. It's got a lifting point right there. So they lift it up from there. They dropped it on the tailgate, push it into the car. I didn't even have to tie it down in the car. I've got a rubber mat in there, and it's pretty heavy. It doesn't move. So that was pretty good. Or if you've got a trailer, if you've got an open ute, even better. Yeah, but it does fit in under a canopy in the back of the Hilux. So yeah, no problems about that. Probably a little bit heavy to lift out. 2 people can do it, no problems. Yeah, you'd probably struggle unless you're a really strong big bloke. And I can lift that up myself, but I can't get it past sort of stomach height. It just gets too heavy for me. So yeah, keep that in mind, that when you get home, if you haven't got a way to lift it up from above to get it down onto the ground, you'll need another person to help you, or a ramp, so you can roll it down a ramp. Anyway, all right, guys, I hope that's helped you out. Stay tuned. I'm going to show you some shots of using the grinder, and some shots of the job that it did. Okay, stay tuned. Alright, so here we are. I'm just grinding down the adhesive at the moment. You can see how it's all patchy behind me. That's because you need to leave some adhesive there with the adhesive blades. They don't like grinding concrete. Now I've swapped over to the concrete blades, and you see how I'm just going through and it's actually cleaning it right up, going back down to the slab, and that's basically all there is to it. It cleans it up really nice. Might have to go over it a couple of times depending on how fussy you are about getting rid of all the black, or depending on what you're going to put down afterwards. But yeah, this did the job for me, and as you can see, it's easy. You just go along slowly, and it just sort of grinds it off, and yeah, it does a really good job. Alright, so here's the results after I used the grinding machine with the 2 types of blades that I showed you earlier. One to remove the adhesive. You can still see some here, but there is no raised section. It's just like a staining from the glue that's sort of I suppose soaked into the concrete. It's quite porous concrete, so well, as you can see, there's sort of patches. And look, I could have removed all of that, but there's just no need to keep going. And the way that the blades work, they sort of float on a light spring that keeps the blades in contact with the concrete, but don't actually apply a lot of pressure. So you're only taking off very light, thin amounts each time. You don't want to be really digging deep into your slab, so you might have to go over it a couple of times. As you can see here, this is the original where the carpet actually came out to here, and you can just feel where I've ground and the original. It's really not your fingernail won't get caught on it. It's that close to being, because you've only taken off a very minute amount. But it does a pretty good job. It's not a totally smooth finish, but I don't really need a totally smooth finish. We just need the adhesive removed, as you can see, you can't quite get into everywhere. I will have to go over this, remove manually by either my reciprocating multi-tool or some sort of scraper, because you just can't get in here with the machine. It's too tight. The handle hits the wall if you try and go in too tight, especially because, you know, if you're coming this way and there. So the edges are going to have to be done by hand, but as you can see, the majority of it is easily removed, and we're now ready for retiling, apart from where I've got to clean up the edges. It does a pretty good job, but be prepared for a lot of cleanup of dust and debris everywhere, because yeah, it does make a mess.